Welcome to the video, Things to Consider When Reading a Research Article. The research article prompting bar patrons with signs to take free condoms should have already been emailed to you. And if you did not receive the article, please email me and I'll get it to you as soon as I can so you'll be able to complete this assignment. You'll need to have a printed hard copy of the article in front of you as you watch this video. If you don't have a printed copy in front of you, it would be best to hold off doing this part of the assignment until you do. The purpose of this video is to highlight some of the ideas you might want to consider when reading research articles. Reading research articles is an extremely important skill that can be a bit daunting when you first start out. However, the good news is that it is a skill, and therefore it can be learned and mastered. If you've already are proficient in reading research articles, with a little work and some time, you'll become much more fluent and much more proficient. Becoming comfortable and prominent in reading research will pay big dividends throughout your master's program and your teaching career. What I'd like to do is to go through some guidelines you might consider when reading a research article and point out as we read the article together. I strongly suggest you take some notes as we go along. At the end of the video, I'll ask you to write an evaluation of the entire research article using the criteria presented in the video as your guide. So let's give it a shot and let's get started. To begin with, it's a very good practice to skim over the article to become familiar with the different sections and information before diving into a deep read. To begin with, take a look at the article that you have in front of you. Look at the very top of page number 1 of the article. It has the name of the journal the article is published in. It's the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, which is a very prestigious journal, by the way, and the citation information. It was published in the summer of 1990 and appears in volume 23 on pages 215 to 217. And on your screen, that's the red box number 1. That's the citation. This information may seem trite at the moment, but as you'll see later on, it has some significance. Now let's take a look at the very bottom left side of page number 1 on your article. And that's represented by the red box number 2 on your screen. This is information on who to contact if you have questions concerning the research, or if you're looking for further resources on the topic. Students sometimes don't realize that if they're reading a research article that fits right in with their topic, that they could contact the researcher at the institution and get more information about other articles that may help them. And it has been my personal and professional experience that researchers are more than willing to answer your questions and suggest other research articles that may be of interest in your area of inquiry. So don't be shy. It may be really worth your while. Now let's take a look at box number 3. This is telling us that the article was received for publication on April 11th, 1989, and then it would have been sent to several experts in the field to be read blind. So it would be read blind, which means that the experts that it's sent to would not know who sponsored the research, who wrote the article, what institution the article is connected with, or any kind of identifying information. The experts would have read the research blind and made a recommendation to publish with suggested revisions, or not to publish at all. or to reject it. The initial editorial decision was made on September 17th, 1989, and obviously the article was accepted for publication with revisions, because you can see the revisions were first received November 12th, and then on the final revisions November 27th. And final acceptance of the article was on January 2nd, 1990, 9 months after the submission. But the actual publication was not until the summer of 1990, over a year after being submitted for publication. Okay, finally, let's go back to page 1 and take a look at the title, which is Prompting Bar Patrons with Signs to Take Free Condoms. Well, okay, so we've looked at the journal where the article came from. We looked at how we can contact the researcher who has written the article, the head researcher. We got the information about it when it was received for publication, when it was finally published. So let's continue, and we're going to skim through the article. And I'd like you to be taking some notes as we go through. So let's revisit the title. And as you can see, the title should give you a good indication of what the research is about, and it generally identifies the relevant variables. In this case, I think it does. From just the title, it appears that there will be signs put up in bars encouraging patrons to take free condoms. In case you're not familiar with the terms dependent and independent variable, the title does identify the relevant variables. The dependent variable is the number of free condoms taken, and the independent variable in this case is whether signs were or were not present in the bars. And we'll discuss this vocabulary and much more of a research vocabulary in future videos. Well, let's take a look at the characteristics of an abstract. An abstract generally, now these are general, not all abstracts will contain everything exactly the way it is spelled out here, but in general this is what a good abstract would have. It would have the purpose of the study, or why the study was done. It would have the method, or the methodology, how the study was done. It would discuss, or at least indicate, the variables involved, like the independent and dependent variables. It would summarize usually the most salient findings, what was found out, and it might give some implications or some conclusions as to the significance of the research. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put the video on pause and read the abstract of this article. Take some notes about the abstract's strengths and weaknesses. And you'll use these notes when it's time to write your evaluation of the article. Okay, so put the video on pause, read the abstract, and then come back and turn the video back on again. Okay, good. Well, finally, let's take a look, skimming through the article, and take a look at the headings. Now, on your screen at the bottom, you'll see the major headings listed. And typically, they will include an introduction. And generally, the introduction is not labeled with a heading. It's usually the first 1 to 6 or 7 paragraphs of the research article. But it's generally not labeled introduction. And you'll see in the article that we're reading, it does not say introduction. Next, typically, there is a literature review. And you'll notice that in our article, we do not have a literature review. The literature review is included in the introduction. Then another typical section would be the methods section, describing the methods of how the research was conducted. And in our case, the methods section is divided into 2 separate areas, setting and procedures and signs. Then generally there's a results section, which we have, and a discussion section, and one that might be labeled limitations or conclusions, and then there's references. Now, these are typical headings that are found in research articles. Not every research article will have all of these headings. As you can see, ours does not. But this is typical of what a research article might have. So what I'd like you to do is take a minute or two, put the video on pause, look at the headings that appear in our research article, and then turn the video back on again. Okay, go ahead. Okay, well, let's continue on. So far, we've glanced over the article. We've looked at the title, the abstract, and we've looked at the typical headings that generally appear in research articles. Now we're going to take a look at each of these headings and what typically they would contain. So we'll start with the introduction section. And typically, the introduction section is not labeled as the introduction, as I mentioned before. And that's the case with this article. And it usually is the first few paragraphs of the article, although the length may vary depending on the particular piece of research. And as you can see on your screen, generally, the introduction identifies the overarching focus of the study. It stimulates interest in the topic. It establishes a rationale for why the research is being done. It places the research question within a larger context, and it starts out with a big picture and should narrow down to a specific area of inquiry or need, and it should develop a logic chain, and the steps in the logic chain should be supported by citations from existing research evidence. And generally, it'll outline what already is known about the topic, so the background, what is not yet known, so what is the need, and then how does this research address the need. Finally, it'll probably state the research question, or if it's a actual hard research, it may state a hypothesis, and it may define important terms. Okay. So it's your turn now. I'm going to ask you to put the video on pause and read the introductory paragraphs of the article, taking notes as you read. And again, you'll use these notes to write your evaluation of the research article when we're done with the video. So please put the video on pause and read the introduction part of the research article. Then put the video back on. Okay, so you've had a chance to evaluate the introduction to the article. You should have some ideas about the article's strengths and its limitations. And also, if the researchers had established a clear logic chain from a bigger idea down to their specific topic. Well, then now let's continue on to a review of the literature. And although our particular article does not have a specific section called literature review, and this, as I said before, this is not so unusual. Many times they don't have a section called literature review, but many times the literature review is right within the context of the introduction. So on your screen, you can see the characteristics of what to look for in a good lit review. The introduction of the article, the research article, will establish the need and the background and rationale for the inquiry. The literature review is a summary of research that has already been done concerning this area of inquiry. What's already known. It should place the topic in a theoretical and historical context. So where does this research come from? What's the bigger area that it comes from? And it should identify trends or changes that have occurred over time. And it's not simply a study-by-study summary. Like so-and-so says this, so-and-so says that, so-and-so says this. But it is the researcher or author's analysis and synthesis of the material that is important, How do they develop their expository argument? That is what is important in the review of the literature. Well, we do not have a review of the lit to look over, so we don't have to do anything here. So let's go on to methods section. And as you can see, the characteristics of a good methods section are that it outlines in specific detail the research methods. And actually, a good methods section should be written like a cookbook recipe so that it can be duplicated. If researchers wanted to replicate the particular piece of research, they could pick up the research and look at the methods section and be able to follow it just like a cookbook recipe. Generally, it'll describe the participants and appropriate demographic details about the participants. It'll describe the research setting. It indicates the research design used, if that's appropriate, whether it's qualitative research method or quantitative methodology. It should describe the data collection procedures, and it should describe any data collection instruments and give an indication, if appropriate, of their reliability and validity. And it should be clearly written and easy to follow so that other researchers wanting to replicate the research would be able to do that. So that makes up a good methods section. Okay, now again, it is your turn. Put the video on pause, read the methods section of the article, and take notes as you read. Then turn the video back on again. Well, okay. So we've looked at the methods section. You've read your methods section. Now let's go to the results section of a research article. This section is generally considered the most difficult section to read and comprehend, especially for those not familiar with descriptive and inferential statistics and hypothesis testing and procedures like that. Don't be so concerned about this right now. We'll cover these topics as the course progresses. As you can see, some criteria for a good research section are that the findings are generally presented in the research section, obviously, may contain tables and charts and diagrams. And we're going to spend some time on it because those are important and sometimes they're not so easy to understand. Also, if a quantitative study will generally report its data in descriptive and or inferential statistics. In other words, it'll use numbers. But a qualitative study generally collects data on a narrative basis, either questionnaires or interviews, direct observations. And the results section should tie in logically with the research question or the area of inquiry. Again, now it becomes your turn. Although this is a very brief research results section, I'd like you to read the results section and take some notes as you read. So put the video on pause, go ahead and read the results section, and then turn the video back on again. Okay, well now we'll go to the discussion and conclusion section. Now, this may have many different names. The heading may have many different names. It could be conclusions, discussions, could be recommendations, limitations, but this is generally where the researchers now sum up what they have found and the implications. And you can see the characteristics generally may appear as a discussion or implications. It should have a summary of the results. It should draw some salient, important conclusions. It should tie back logically to the research question or area of inquiry and the literature review. It should talk about any theoretical and practical implications discussed. Usually it may include recommendations for further study. And the conclusions should follow logically from the results. The authors should not go beyond their results and make broad, general, grand statements about their findings. Also, it should absolutely include the limitations of the study. Again, now it's your turn. Put the video on pause, read the discussions or conclusion section, and then turn the video back on again. Okay, now some research may have a section called limitation, and keep in mind that not all research will contain a specific section called limitations. However, researchers should always mention any limitations that the research may have. Many times the limitations are included in the discussion or conclusion section. Our research article does not have a separate section called limitations, so you won't need to read it. But ask yourself, did the researchers discuss any limitations of the study? And if they did not, this is generally not a very good sign. Okay, now let's continue on to the last part of the research section, which is the references. And as you can see, the reference section should include an evaluation and verification of all sources used. And the reference section is an excellent source of identifying other research in the area. So if you're reading a research article that fits right in with what you're doing, look at the reference section. You may get additional information. And it should be in the American Psychological Association publication format. So take a quick look at your reference section and see if it meets the criteria presented. And now we have gone through the entire article. So that's good. Excellent job. Now let's just move on here. Now this is sort of a model, or at least a conceptual framework that you might want to think about in terms of evaluating research. On the top up here, we have a research methodology. And you can have good methodology and, let's say, yucky methodology. Those are the two extreme ends. And over here, we have research reporting. And we can have good research reporting and yucky research reporting. So we get here then sort of a model that has 4 boxes, let's say. This box right here is good research methodology and good research reporting. So this kind of an article would be a good deal. You'd want to use articles that have good methodology and good reporting. Here we have research that has yucky methodology, but good reporting. It sounds good, but the methodology is not good. You want to avoid this. This is a bad deal. You want to avoid that. Here we have research that has good research methodology, but yucky reporting. Well, although the reporting may be yucky, if the methodology is good, then this might be a possibility. This might be a good article. Might be a good article. And here, obviously, if you have yucky methodology and yucky reporting, well, that's useless. You just throw that away. Don't waste your time. Well, this is just a way of sort of, I'm sharing this with you as a way of sort of looking at a model of how you might evaluate a research article. Now, reading through figures and tables and charts and graphs that are presented in research papers is really an extremely important and sometimes difficult, and at times can be time-consuming. However, consider the fact that the researcher or researchers consider the information contained in the visuals so important as to warrant special attention. On our first skim through the research articles, you will read, you will most likely not fully understand all of the complexities and nuances of the visuals, the charts and tables, the graphs, whatever. However, you will gain some idea of what the authors think is important, and you will uncover valuable information about what to pay attention to when you give the article a deep read. So be prepared to spend some time digesting the information contained in the various charts, tables, graphs, figures, etc. So I'd like you to look at an example of a rather complicated chart and spend some time digging around in it to see what we can discover. On your screen, this graphic is from an internet blog titled Guide to Reading Academic Research Papers. And you can see up on the top of the screen in the yellow box, that's the citation. And this figure is from a 2017 scientific paper. You can see the red box at the bottom of the screen has the article citation at the very bottom of the screen, which addressed doctoral students' perceptions of the ease or difficulty of reading various sections of a research paper, such as the abstract, introduction, discussion sections, etc., when it is contrasted with their progress in their doctoral program. Are they first-year doc students, second year, third year? Have they gotten their PhD? Are they a postdoc student? Take a look at section A, the red box over here. The x-axis on the bottom, that's where the doctoral students are in their program. Second year, third year, already have their doctorate, doing postdoc work, are in academia, are professions. So this is the x-axis, and the y-axis is the percent of participants considering section easy to read. So this is the percentage of participants considering the section easy to read. Over here, we have the x-axis is the same. First year, second year, third year, PhD, postdoc, and professors in academia out teaching. And this is their ranking of the importance of the particular research article section. So you can see they have results, methods, and so on, and so on. So again, this figure addresses the doctoral students' perceptions of the ranking and importance of the various parts of the research article when contrasted with their progress. Now, I know I have not given you a lot of information about this figure. However, that was on purpose. I want you to spend a few minutes carefully examining this figure and writing down some thoughts or implications you might have on what it is intended to convey to you. See if you can make some statements about the information contained in this figure. Put on your detective hat and try and solve this mystery. Take careful notes because you'll be asked to share your conclusions about this graphic as part of your assignment. So put the video on pause, spend 5 or 10 minutes carefully examining and determining just what this research is intended to tell you. Okay, well, that's it. That's it. Now here is your assignment, and I want to go over it with you. Okay, this is your assignment for this video. Your initial assignment number 1 has 3 different parts to it. This is part 1. And part 1 of your initial assignment number 1, part 1 has 3 different areas of it too. So first, I should have emailed you a research opinion paper called Making Research Serve the Profession. So I would like you to read this opinion paper. And again, as I said, it should have already been mailed to you. If it's not, please email me immediately and I will get it to you as quickly as I can. And there are prompts at the beginning of this opinion paper, and you are to respond in writing to these prompts. That's the first part of the assignment. The second part of the assignment, we've just read and examined the article prompting bar patrons with signs to take free condoms. Using your notes and the ideas you came up with, write a critique of the article discussing the strengths and weaknesses. Give specific examples of your evidence that you use to back up your claims. At the beginning of the article is a guide with prompts for you to respond to. Finally, the third part of assignment number 1, part 1, include in your assignment the conclusions or meanings you drew from the graphic information you just looked at concerning doctoral students and their attitudes about various sections in research articles. Now, what I would like you to do, as I would like you to do with all assignments, the assignments may have various different parts, but I would like you to put all of your written responses in one Word document. Please no Google Docs or PDFs or anything like that, just one Word document that you will create for the entire assignment. Title the document Your Name and Things to Consider, and email me the document to the email address below. Well, I'll read you the email address. The email address is happy, Happy, J, 1939 at yahoo.com. That's happyj1939 at yahoo.com. Okay, well, that's your assignment. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and we'll see you next video.